This lesson is all about really quick yogurt flatbreads, which are brilliant to have with curries and tagines, or you could have them with dips, or you can even make them into a really quick pizza base. And they take 5 minutes and they've only got a few ingredients. So in this bowl, we've got 170 grams of self-raising flour. And to that, we're going to add half a teaspoon of baking powder and a generous pinch of salt. Now you could also add some spices if you wanted to. You could put a little bit of curry powder through. You can get nigella seeds, which are little black seeds you get in naan breads. You could put some chopped fresh herbs through, and I think you want to, a little bit of oregano depending on what you're cooking. Put some garlic powder as well. And then my wet ingredients are 125 grams of yogurt, and then 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and that's just going to give them a nice flavour. And I'm going to stir all of that together. And you'll find that it goes into nice big flaky clumps, at which point I'm going to get rid of the spoon, get my hand in there, and I'm going to use my hand to really squash it together. Try not to flick it all over the place. And it should come together and feel a bit like Play-Doh. So it's nice and soft, but it's not really sticky, so it's quite easy to handle. And just keep kneading it in the bowl until you get all the bits up, and it should form a ball. And then we can roll it out. So I'm just going to knead it for a second, just pass it between my hands, just to make sure we don't have any dry bits. And that's all you have to do. So if you compare that to a proper yeasted pizza dough, which is obviously going to be nicer, or a flatbread dough, it's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes of kneading and then an hour or so of rising. So this is so much more straightforward. So our next job is to make it into flatbreads or pizza bases. So I'm going to cut my dough, and this is going to make 4 nice sized flatbreads. And then I'm just going to roll it out. So I'm going to take my dough, squash it into a ball, and then I can sprinkle a little bit of flour on my work surface to stop it sticking, and take a rolling pin. I'm just going to roll it out. And what you want to do, we're going to dry fry these, so we want to make sure that they're really nice and thin. So roll them as thin as you can get them. So ideally sort of 50p coin thickness, really nice and thin, because that's going to help them cook and be nice and fluffy in the middle rather than stodgy. Now if your dough is a little bit sticky or you're struggling to roll it out, a good trick is to take a couple of pieces of baking paper, put one down, put the dough on, put another piece over the top, and then you can roll your dough out between the baking paper and it will stop it sticking. Or just do what I'm doing and put down a little bit of flour. Now if I want to make a pizza base, I've just got half of my dough, so that recipe that I've given you will make 2 pizza bases, and I'm going to roll it out into a nice circle. Now a great thing about this recipe is it also works with gluten-free flour, so just any self-raising gluten-free flour is absolutely fine, and you'll find that the yogurt holds it together. Now it'll be a little bit more difficult to roll out because if you take gluten out of flour, it's not so springy, so you would then want to probably roll it between 2 pieces of baking paper, but other than that it works brilliantly. So there's my pizza size, there's my flatbread size. Now all we've got to do is fry them. So now we need to cook the flatbreads, and they're really straightforward to cook. We're going to dry fry them, and that means we're going to fry them without putting any oil or fat in the pan at all. We're just going to get a nice big pan with a flat base on the heat and wait till the pan just gets quite hot. Keep it over a medium heat, otherwise it's going to get out of control. And I can just feel if I put my hand over the top that it's warm. So I'm going to take my flatbread, and I'm just going to add it to the pan and leave it. I'm going to cook it for a couple of minutes on one side until it's nice and golden, and then we're going to flip it over and cook it on the other side. So you might see that these little bubbles of air are starting to rise in the pan, which is great. That's the baking powder and the self-raising flour. And once it's nice and golden, we flip it over and cook the other side.